Dave McMenamin, Mr. McMenamin, ESPN NBA reporter. He's leaving Los Angeles, going to Denver. He'll cover the first two games of the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. That starts on Saturday. Dave, thanks for getting up early with us. Let me start with the Clippers first. Paul George said he doesn't feel any pressure. And, just going out and play. It feels like they're in no man's land. How do you assess the Clippers moving forward? Granted, they're not out of the series yet, but losing by 30 at home last night.
Yeah, so they win game 4 in Dallas. Obviously, they could win game 6 and bring it back home to try to advance to the second round. But think about all those fans in that arena last night, Crypto.com. You put up a goose egg, lose by 30 to the Mavericks, and you're trying to convince a bunch of those folks to, hey, next year we're going to up the ticket prices. We're going to be playing games in Inglewood. And get excited for this group when we completely fell on our face. In a similar fashion, I remind you that not just the guys on the court underperforming, but the face of this current team in street clothes on the bench, not even able to give it a go. So just as abject of a failure last night as possible. Of course, they can still win the series, but you start to wonder, this entire experiment, basically since 2018, putting this group together, has it been worth it? Because you see what's happening over in Oklahoma City. That guy, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is going to be an MVP candidate for years to come, and he's still going, and you traded him to get this mess.
Yeah, but I look at Kawhi, they extend him in January. What were they basing that on, Dave?
I mean, he certainly had stretches this year where he looked really good, and that extension led to a run in January and February. I think they went 16-2. They looked like the real deal, and there was chemistry between Kawhi and James Harden and Paul George, and they all have that kind of shared LA background connection, and it seemed to kind of make sense. But if you can't play from April through June, kind of the entire operation revolves around that. If you can't do it, what's the point?
Yeah, because people would say, well, it's about load management. He'll be ready come postseason time, and then he's not ready postseason time, and then you got 3 more years here. I'm wondering if Paul George looks around and goes, do I want to go through this for 3 more years? You got Harden getting older, Westbrook, his role, Kawhi, you're not sure. You got a really good coach, but I wonder if Paul is the one who says, maybe I need to get out of here.
And if he decides to do that, there are going to be plenty of suitors. You look at a team like the Philadelphia 76ers, they're going to have cap space, and they're kind of knocking on the door of being at that next tier of contender status. You look at a team like the Orlando Magic that could get out of the first round if they can come back from down 3-2 to Cleveland. They have Paolo Banchero, another young stud. Jamal Mosley, Coach of the Year candidate. No state taxes. There's some attraction there. Or maybe you go down the hallway. If he made it known he wanted to play for the Los Angeles Lakers, there are machinations in place that the Lakers could pull off to try to put him in purple and gold. And so there are plenty of options for Paul George. It's going to come down to, are the Clippers going to give him the number that he wants to get? Because to me, like, the Clippers are, by extending Kawhi, you're pot committed already. Like, I don't see how you kind of go 1 foot in, 1 foot out at this point as you move towards the Intuit Dome and opening up that new building. I imagine they're going to keep it together. I just don't know how much kind of belief that this group is going to inspire in this city as the Clippers try to siphon fans away from the Lakers.
What are the options for the Lakers moving forward?
Well, first of all, they need to make a decision about head coach Darvin Ham. I'm told that as recently as yesterday, he still hadn't spoken to the Lakers front office in terms of his fate and what that's going to be. Now, there's still a couple of days left this week, and the team continues to go through kind of its postmortem of what happened this season and why they didn't end up where they wanted to be. You think back a year ago, 4 playoff losses to the Nuggets by 24 points. A year later, 4 playoff losses to the Nuggets by 22 points. So they made some great progress, but I would anticipate that there will be a coaching change there. And and you have to make that decision who that's going to be to fill his role. And then I think the next thing you look to is the point guard and D'Angelo Russell. He has a player option next year for $18.7 million. If he picks it up, does he just become a trade piece that you can attach potentially up to 3 first-round draft picks to try to get someone that you feel like could be a more reliable contributor on the postseason stage? Because we saw flameouts from Russell in the last 2 playoffs, even though, quite frankly, he was, during the regular season this year, the 3rd most reliable Laker.
Talking to Dave McMenamin, ESPN NBA reporter, and he was covering the Lakers series with Denver. Now Denver against the Timberwolves. They tip off on Saturday. I know this sounds crazy. I think it was brought up yesterday or maybe the day before that if LeBron does this podcast with J.J. Redick, J.J. Redick being interviewed or reportedly interviewed with Charlotte, do you think that there's any thought in LeBron's mind, or how much of a role would he play in who's going to be the next head coach? Would they consider J.J. Redick because of LeBron's friendship, partnership with him?
Well, certainly LeBron's opinion is weighed by Rob Pelinka when he goes about doing his business. He calls him a stakeholder. But that said, LeBron's opinion was known back a couple of years ago when LeBron wanted Ty Lue to be the head coach to replace Luke Walton. That didn't happen. So it's not just because LeBron puts the rubber stamp on a guy that the Lakers are automatically going to ink them to be the new guy running the sidelines. But certainly his influence matters. And also the Lakers are a glamour franchise. So they like themselves to be considered that way. And you get a guy with some cachet in JJ Redick, or you were to pull him off the number 1 broadcast team at ESPN and ABC right onto the sidelines. A good-looking guy, looks good in a suit. I mean, they did this with Pat Riley many, many years ago, right? And we saw how that worked out. JJ certainly is a real candidate if they do open up this coaching search. And okay. but there's I'd say a half a dozen folks out there, included possibly the guy who just lost last night against the Mavericks, and Tyronn Lue. He's had 1 year remaining on his contract. What's going to happen with his deal with the Clippers? That there will be a process there, that there are several viable candidates that will get an interview.
How beatable are the Nuggets?
I don't think so beatable. The Lakers gave them a competitive series, but the thing about the Nuggets is when it comes down to winning time, they have so much continuity and confidence among one another, and they have a superstar. They have the best player in basketball, and I understand the ascending star that the Wolves have in Anthony Edwards, but he is not where Nikola Jokic is right now. So Jokic, you can put him at any part of the floor, and he can kind of cater his game to what he needs to do in order to help the team succeed. It's remarkable, quite frankly. He can turn into a passing center. He can turn it to a post-up scorer. He can turn it to a passing kick guy. And there's no sweat on his part in terms of, I wish I was doing this more often. It's just whatever I can do to manipulate the defense to help my team win. They have a ton of confidence. Now, obviously, you saw Jamal Murray and that calf issue hampering him a bit in the first round, but they're going to get 4 or 5 days to try to get that right before they start the Wolves series. I think it's going to be a long series, a competitive series. Denver does have home court in it. I think that's going to matter. I see Denver getting through that series and getting back to the finals, quite frankly.
You don't have Steph, you don't have KD, you don't have LeBron, so you don't have your big stars, recognizable stars. Is this a good thing for the NBA?
At some point, you're going to have to get into the new era, and why not it be now? Honestly, this Wolves-Denver series, it can't be more exciting. You saw what the Wolves did in the first round, dispatching Phoenix, and just the killer mentality that Anthony Edwards displayed when they needed it. That guy is electric. Anybody, if you watched NBA at all for the last 40 years, you're going to blur your eyes and rub your glasses and think at times you're watching the second coming or third coming of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant when you watch Anthony Edwards. That's fantastic. and you have him putting his powers up against a true team that, if you've been watching the basketball the last 40 years and seen teams like the San Antonio Spurs and you appreciate their style of basketball, you're going to get some of that too with the Nuggets. And then on the other side of the aisle, back in the East, you have the most exciting Knicks team maybe since '99 getting it done. And obviously the Boston Celtics is another group that have been knocking on the door, and you kind of always like to see a team that has been kind of roughed up a few times finally get through those past transgressions or past disappointments to do something together as a group. There says something about the continuity that Wick Grossbeck and that group has allowed that team to grow with. So I think there's a ton of great storylines, a ton of great players, and a ton of like talented players who care about the game, care about basketball. Like, I think it's a great time to keep watching the NBA playoffs.
Let me go back to LeBron and Bronny. When does Bronny have to make his decision if he's going to go to another college or he's going into the draft?
It's I believe it's like the very end of May, so there's still plenty of time here. He's officially in the draft pool right now, and I'm told that he's been working out and trying to get his body right. And there's been no decision made. The James family has been very clear that it's going to come down to what Bronny wants to do. Now, there was a report in The Athletic that the Lakers would be willing to draft Bronny James in order to get LeBron to sign a new contract. Now, LeBron's made it quite clear for more than a year now that at one point, yes, it was his dream to play alongside Bronny James on the same team, share a locker room, share buses, share film sessions, all that stuff. That's not the case anymore. And it hasn't been the case for a while. If it was to happen organically, that's a wonderful thing. But there's no demand from LeBron James and his representatives for the Lakers to draft him. If you think about it, they had the 17th pick, and that could be a pick that they would package in a deal to get another talented player of the likes of a Donovan Mitchell or Trae Young or DeJounte Murray. They have the 55th pick, and if Bronny remains in the draft, I don't know if he'd still be on the board at 55. So it's not so realistic for the Lakers to think about drafting him. If Bronny remains in the draft, I expect him to be drafted by a team, and it'd probably be in the second round. And those teams that would consider drafting him, they're not looking at like, if we get Bronny, that means we're getting LeBron. It's not a package deal at this point.
Safe travels to Denver. Thanks for joining us as always.
Thanks, Dan.
Dave McMenamin, ESPN NBA reporter, and covering the Nuggets and the Timberwolves.